Imagine a luxury cruise ship, built to withstand the harshest polar environments, now drifting aimlessly in the warm waters of the Atlantic. It's not a storm or a mechanical failure keeping it at sea. It's an invisible killer. This is the MV Hantavirus. It's currently a floating cage, carrying 150 passengers and 70 crew members who are being rejected by every port they approach. It was supposed to be a dream Atlantic odyssey, a journey from the tip of Argentina through the icy wonders of Antarctica toward the sunny Canary Islands. But that dream died in late April 2026. 3 people are dead, several others are in critical condition, and the World Health Organization is racing to find out if this rare disease has learned a new, terrifying trick. For the people on board, the ship is no longer a hotel. It's a quarantine zone. The nightmare began with a 70-year-old man from the Netherlands. He was healthy when he boarded in Argentina, but as the ship crossed the open ocean, he suddenly came down with what looked like a bad flu, fever, headaches, and sharp stomach pains. Within days, his condition turned into a respiratory crisis. He died right there on the ship, thousands of miles from a hospital. But the tragedy didn't stop with him. His 69-year-old wife soon fell ill with the same symptoms. She was desperately evacuated to South Africa, but it was too late. She collapsed at the airport and died shortly after. Then, a third traveler, a German national, died on the ship from a cause that doctors on board couldn't even identify. While these deaths were happening, a 69-year-old British man was rushed into intensive care in Johannesburg, his lungs failing just like the others. When the lab results finally came back from South Africa, they confirmed everyone's worst fear: Hantavirus. To understand why this is so scary, you have to understand what the virus does. It's a stealth predator. When you breathe it in, it travels to your lungs and hijacks the tiny blood vessels called capillaries. It doesn't kill them. It just makes them leaky. Your own immune system, trying to help, overreacts and causes a storm of inflammation. Suddenly your lungs fill with fluid. You aren't dying from a cough or a cold. You are effectively drowning from the inside in your own plasma. The mortality rate is staggering. Up to 40 or 50% of people who get the lung version of this virus don't survive. And there is no vaccine, no cure, and no specific treatment. The biggest mystery for investigators right now is, how did a rodent virus get onto a luxury cruise ship? Hantavirus is usually something you catch in a dusty old barn or a cabin in the woods, not a polar expedition vessel. Scientists are looking at 2 biologically plausible but chilling possibilities. The first theory is ghost rodents. It's possible that during the ship's time in port, or while taking on supplies in Argentina, a few infected mice crawled into the food storage, or, even worse, the ventilation system. If that happened, every time the air conditioner kicked on, it could have been blowing invisible, virus-filled dust into the cabins. The second theory is what's keeping health officials awake at night. Because the MV Hantavirus started its journey in South America, experts are worried about a specific version of the virus called the Andes strain. Most hantaviruses are dead-end infections, meaning they stop with the person who caught it from a mouse. But the Andes strain is the only one in the world known to spread from human to human. If this is the Andes strain, the ship isn't just a site of exposure, it's a site of active transmission. To solve the mystery of the ship, we have to look back at the most famous hantavirus outbreak in history, the 1993 Four Corners incident in the American Southwest. Back then, healthy young Navajo runners were dropping dead within 24 hours of feeling sick. Just like on the cruise ship, doctors were baffled. They thought it was the plague or a new flu. It was the Navajo elders who provided the clue. They remembered that when there was a lot of rain, the piñon nuts grew and the mouse population exploded. This created a mouse boom, where thousands of extra mice moved into human spaces. This historical event taught us that hantavirus isn't new. By testing old mouse samples kept in museums, scientists found the virus had been living in the desert since at least 1959. It only strikes when we disturb its environment, or when the environment changes around us. On the MV Hantavirus, it seems we have crossed paths with this ancient predator once again, but this time in the middle of the ocean. Right now, the MV Hantavirus is sitting near Praia, the capital of Cape Verde, but it is not allowed to dock. The World Health Organization is trying to coordinate a multi-country response to get the sick people off the ship and back home. But there is a huge problem: the incubation blind spot. Hantavirus can hide in your body for anywhere from 1 to 8 weeks before you feel a single symptom. The ship has only been at sea for a few weeks, which means there could be dozens of people on board who feel perfectly fine today but will be fighting for their lives by next week. As the ship sits in quarantine, investigators are racing to sequence the virus's DNA. They need to know, is this the version that spreads between people? Until they have that answer, the passengers of the Hantavirus are trapped with an invisible neighbor, waiting to see who the nameless predator will choose next.